She hadn't eaten in 2 days, but that wasn't what broke her. It was the text that came just as she reached for the bottle of medicine, her little brother's message: "They're about to kick us out again." The world tilted. The hum of the pharmacy blurred into a single, ringing silence. Shelves of color and light faded, and her knees gave way. Before she hit the floor, strong arms caught her, steady, warm, unexpected. When Imani opened her eyes, she saw a stranger's face hovering above hers. His blue eyes were full of worry and something else, something that felt like destiny refusing to walk past her pain. She didn't know it yet, but that moment, the fall, the rescue, would change both of their lives forever. "Hi, my beautiful family. I have missed you all. Thank you so for sticking around with me. I truly appreciate your love and support. If you're already hooked in for today's story and ready to enjoy it, click subscribe and let me know in the comments where you're watching from, because tomorrow I will be giving you another story just as interesting as this one. And you don't want to miss it. Now let us begin. The smell of antiseptic mixed with the faint sweetness of menthol and perfume, the familiar perfume of tiredness. Imani stood behind the pharmacy counter, blinking hard to stay focused as the room pulsed faintly. It was past noon, but she'd been up since 4 a.m., finishing a night shift at the hospital before stopping here to pick up prescriptions for her siblings. Her eyes burned from lack of sleep. Her stomach ached with emptiness. "Next, please," the pharmacist called. Imani stepped forward, holding a crumpled slip of paper. The pharmacist smiled politely but glanced at her like she'd seen this before, a woman trying to hold it together on willpower alone. Imani managed a small smile. "Just these, please," she whispered, voice hoarse. The pharmacist scanned the items. "That'll be $118. Imani's throat tightened. Her debit card balance barely held half that. "Can you just do the antibiotics for now? I'll come back for the rest." The pharmacist nodded kindly. "Of course." Imani fished through her purse, hands trembling slightly. Her phone buzzed. It was her 14-year-old brother, Malik. "They're saying we have to leave by 5, Imani. The landlord said no more extensions." Her chest constricted. She texted back fast. "I'll fix it. Just stay calm." Her vision blurred. Her hand went cold. She tried to steady herself on the counter. The pharmacist's voice grew distant. "Ma'am? You okay?" Imani shook her head slightly, lips parting to answer, but no sound came. The floor came up fast. Shelves tilted. Then nothing. Ryan Carter had come into the pharmacy that day for one reason: to pick up a refill of his late sister's medication, something he did every year on her birthday, a strange ritual he never explained. He was talking quietly to the clerk when he saw movement out of the corner of his eye. A woman swaying, her hand reaching out into thin air. He reacted before thinking, crossing the aisle in 3 long strides. When her body went limp, he caught her just before she hit the tile. Hey, I've got you," he said, lowering her gently to the floor. Her head rested in the crook of his arm. She was light but not fragile. He could feel the pulse of exhaustion in every muscle. Her skin glowed softly under the fluorescent lights, sweat beading along her temple. He brushed a curl from her forehead, his voice low and urgent. "Call 911, he told the clerk. "Now." Imani's eyes fluttered open for a moment, dazed and confused. Her gaze met his, those piercing blue eyes that seemed to hold her steady even as the world spun. "Don't move," he murmured. "You fainted." Her lips moved weakly. "My brother. I have to." "Shoo. He's fine. You need air." He didn't even know her name, but something in him refused to let go. Minutes later, an ambulance arrived. Ryan rode with her, ignoring the paramedic's curious look when he insisted on staying by her side. He told himself it was just concern, just basic decency. But deep down, he knew it was more. At the hospital, Imani regained full consciousness. She blinked against the light and saw him sitting beside her bed, jacket off, sleeves rolled up, watching her quietly. "You stayed," she croaked. He smiled faintly. "Would have felt wrong to leave." Her cheeks flushed. I'm sorry. You didn't have to. I did, he said simply. You scared me half to death. There was silence. The kind that stretches but doesn't break. Then she said softly, I'm fine. Just low blood sugar, maybe. He tilted his head. Low blood sugar doesn't come with that kind of look in your eyes. You were running on fumes. Imani blinked, a mix of embarrassment and fatigue washing over her. You're very observant for someone I don't know. He gave a small laugh. I run a pharmaceutical group. Observation's part of the job. Her eyebrows lifted. So you're a doctor. Pharmacist by training. Investor by accident. I'm Ryan. Imani, she said, voice soft. Well, Imani, maybe next time, you'll let someone catch you before you hit the floor. She laughed quietly. I'll keep that in mind. That night, when she finally returned home, Malik was asleep on the couch. Imani looked around the small apartment, the unpaid bills stacked on the table. Her phone buzzed again, an unknown number. It's Ryan. The hospital gave me your contact in case of follow-up. Hope you're okay. She hesitated before replying. I'm fine. Thank you again, for everything. He responded almost instantly. Don't mention it. Just take care of yourself. People like you forget to. Her chest tightened. People like me, she typed. Healers, he wrote back. You pour out until you're empty. Imani stared at the screen for a long moment. He was right. But she wasn't ready to admit how empty she'd become. 2 days later, she walked into the same pharmacy to collect her prescriptions. Ryan was there again, this time behind the counter, talking with the staff. He spotted her immediately. Hey, fainting lady. She rolled her eyes, smiling despite herself. Please don't make that a nickname. Fine, he said, stepping closer. Then what do I call you? Just Imani. Just Imani, he repeated, like testing the way it sounded. You good today? I ate breakfast, she said, holding up her sandwich wrapper. See. Learning. He grinned. Proud of you. Though you might have started a trend. I've had 3 people pretend to faint since you. She laughed, shaking her head. You're impossible. There was an ease between them now, one that shouldn't exist between strangers, yet did. Listen, he said, lowering his voice. I'm hosting a small health outreach this weekend. Free checkups, community support stuff. You'd be perfect for it. I don't know, she said carefully. I've got shifts. I'll make sure you're compensated, he interrupted gently. You'd help people who can't afford care. She hesitated, then smiled. You're not used to hearing no, are you? Only from people worth listening to, he replied. That earned a laugh from her. Fine. I'll come by. That weekend, under a sun that felt warmer than usual, Imani showed up. Ryan was there early, sleeves rolled, greeting every volunteer personally. When she approached, he smiled the way a man does when he's glad someone showed up, for reasons he can't yet say. As the day went on, Imani watched him. The way he knelt to help an elderly man fill out a form. The way he carried boxes himself, refusing to delegate everything. The way he listened. Maybe he wasn't just some rich guy with time to kill. Maybe he was a man still trying to heal something inside himself. When the event ended, he offered her a bottle of water. You did amazing today. So did you. He hesitated, then said softly, I meant what I said before, Imani. You give too much. Someone needs to make sure you're okay, too. She looked at him, really looked. And you think that someone's you? His answer was simple. If you'll let me. Her heart thudded once, hard. She didn't answer, not yet. But for the first time in a long time, she didn't feel alone. Have you ever met someone who showed up in your life exactly when everything was falling apart, and somehow made it make sense again? Imani had been trying to sleep, but her mind wouldn't stop racing. Ryan's words replayed like a soundtrack. Someone needs to make sure you're okay, too. The hum of the city outside her apartment window was faint, almost soothing, but her heart still thudded at the memory of the warmth in his voice. By the time she arrived at the pharmacy the next morning, she was still shaking off a mix of nerves and anticipation. She had no idea why she was nervous. He was just a man who had caught her when she fainted, after all, but every instinct in her body insisted otherwise. Ryan was already there, adjusting the stock on a high shelf. He turned when he heard her enter, his blue eyes lighting up like the first spark of morning. "Morning," he said, voice casual, though the slight lift of his brow suggested he had been hoping she'd come. "Morning," she replied, brushing a curl behind her ear. She noticed the fit of his suit jacket even under casual posture, the gold watch glinting softly as he moved. "You start early." "Early riser," he said, walking toward her. "Coffee?" She blinked. Sure." They walked together to the small break room at the back. Ryan poured 2 cups of black coffee and handed one to her. Their fingers brushed briefly, and a shiver ran through Imani, though she immediately tried to ignore it. "You okay?" he asked, observing her carefully. His tone wasn't just polite, it was probing, almost tender, and she realized he wasn't asking because he had to. He genuinely wanted to know. "I'm fine," she said, though her voice lacked conviction. "A little tired, that's all." He didn't press. He just nodded and took a sip of his coffee. "You've been working too hard." "I have responsibilities," she said defensively, though she immediately regretted the sharp edge in her voice. "Family to take care of." Ryan's eyes softened. "I get it. I lost someone once too. You feel like if you stop, everything falls apart." Her breath caught. "You lost someone?" He nodded. "My sister. Years ago. Something preventable. I've been trying to make up for it ever since, helping where I can, investing where it matters. You remind me of people I've met along the way. Quiet, strong, giving more than you should." Imani stared at him, suddenly aware of the depth behind those blue eyes. She had only known him for a few days, yet she felt like he could see straight through her defenses. They shared a long silence, broken only by the hiss of the coffee machine finishing a new pot. Finally, she said, "You're very observant for a stranger." "I'm a pharmacist," he said lightly, but his eyes twinkled with a hint of humor. "Observation is kind of my thing." She laughed softly. The sound seemed to surprise even her. It was light, genuine, and Ryan smiled, leaning slightly closer. "You should let someone take care of you once in a while," he said, quieter now. "Even if it's just letting me help." Imani's gaze dropped to her coffee cup. She wanted to resist. She had always been the one helping, never the one helped. But something about him, the way he didn't demand, the way he simply offered, made her feel seen, truly seen, for the first time in years. That afternoon, Ryan called her unexpectedly. "Imani, are you free tonight? I have something I want to show you." She hesitated. "Show me." "Yes," he said, his voice careful, almost teasing. "I promise it's not a trap. Just a project I think you might find interesting." Imani wasn't sure why she agreed. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was something deeper, a pull she didn't fully understand. Ryan's car was sleek, black, and understated. He drove through the city with quiet precision, explaining little about the route. When they arrived, Imani's eyes widened. It was a small clinic, modest but impeccably maintained. Ryan had gathered volunteers, medical supplies, and community resources to provide free checkups for people who couldn't afford them. "This is yours too," he said gently, seeing the awe in her eyes. "You inspired this. The work you do, the way you care. It reminded me that some people just give too much without asking for anything in return. This is my way of making sure you're okay." Imani's throat tightened. You did all this for me?" "No," he said softly. "I did this because I saw how much you care. I wanted to make a difference, but I couldn't do it alone. I thought, Maybe you'd like to help lead it." She stared at him, overwhelmed. I don't know what to say." "Say yes," he suggested with a smile. "Or say no. I'll take either. But I think we could do something amazing together." Imani nodded slowly, still taking in the enormity of his offer. "Yes," she said finally. "I'll help. But you should know, I don't take favors lightly." "I wouldn't have it any other way," he said. Over the next few days, they worked together at the clinic. Imani marveled at how seamlessly Ryan adapted to the flow of things, speaking with volunteers, helping patients, even rolling up his sleeves to carry boxes of supplies. She noticed little things, how his gaze softened when he listened, how his laugh was rare but genuine, how he never tried to overshadow anyone. One evening, as they closed for the night, a young boy approached with a scraped knee. Imani knelt beside him, gently cleaning the wound. Ryan stood close, watching her. "You're amazing," he said quietly. Imani looked up, startled by the sincerity in his voice. "I'm just doing my job." He shook his head. "No. You go above and beyond. You care more than most people ever will. I can't stop noticing it." Her chest fluttered, and she looked away. She wasn't used to being seen like that. Most people saw her as competent, strong, maybe even intimidating, but rarely did they see the exhaustion, the small cracks in her armor. "You're safe here," he said, stepping closer. His voice was low, almost a whisper. "With me, I mean. You don't have to carry everything alone." Imani felt a shiver run through her. She wanted to protest, to remind him she didn't need rescuing. But the truth was, she did. She wanted this. Needed it, even. For a moment, the clinic felt like a world apart, a quiet, safe space where two people could just be, without judgment, without expectation. Later that week, Ryan invited her to dinner. Not a date, he insisted, just a chance to discuss logistics for the clinic project. They met at a small, elegant restaurant, the kind of place that felt private without being pretentious. Over dinner, they talked about family, work, dreams, and disappointments. Imani told him about her siblings, about the long nights she spent worrying if she could keep everything afloat. He shared stories of his sister, of the regrets that had shaped his life. By the time dessert arrived, there was an intimacy between them, quiet, steady, and undeniable. Their hands brushed when reaching for the same plate, and neither pulled away. Their eyes met across the table, a spark lingering where conversation left off. Ryan's phone buzzed, but he ignored it, focusing entirely on her. Imani realized she hadn't felt this seen, this understood, in years. "You know," she said softly, "I never expected a stranger to care this much." He reached across the table, gently resting his hand on hers. "Some people just matter," he said. "And I think you matter more than you realize." Her heart pounded, and she swallowed hard. Words failed her. But in that touch, that small, careful connection, she felt the weight she had been carrying begin to lift, even if only a little. A soft, tense moment broke as his hand lingered. Imani felt something stir inside her, a fear, a hope, and a longing all at once. Could she allow herself to trust a man she barely knew? Could she risk being seen, fully, again? And somewhere deep down, Ryan wondered the same. He had never let anyone in so easily, and yet, he couldn't imagine letting her go. Could you trust someone who showed up when your world was falling apart, even if it meant opening your heart to someone completely new? The first day of the new community outreach clinic had been chaotic in the best possible way. Ryan had spent the morning coordinating volunteers while Imani darted from patient to patient, her hands moving with practiced precision. Between bandages, checkups, and paperwork, there were moments when their eyes met across the room, brief sparks of recognition and something else, something unspoken that hummed in the air. By mid-afternoon, a sudden downpour outside forced the volunteers and patients to stay longer than planned. The waiting room overflowed with families, and the cramped quarters created a kind of forced proximity that neither of them had anticipated. Imani was checking on a young mother and her newborn when she felt a gentle hand brush against her back. She turned instinctively. Ryan's eyes met hers, a half-smile playing on his lips. "You need a break," he said quietly. "I'm fine," she replied, but the tremor in her voice betrayed her. She had been running on adrenaline, coffee, and sheer willpower all morning. He shook his head, stepping closer. "No, you're not. Look at you. You've barely sat down in 3 hours. "I don't have time," she said, biting her lip. "Yes, you do," he countered firmly. "Sit." Before she could protest, he guided her to a chair, his hand lingering at her elbow in a way that made her pulse spike. She could feel the warmth of him so close, the scent of his cologne subtle but grounding. "You're not invincible," he murmured, sitting beside her. "Even heroes need a break." Imani exhaled slowly, letting herself sink into the seat, aware of the nearness of his body. For a brief moment, she let down the walls she'd kept fortified for years. The rain drummed steadily against the large windows, and the room seemed quieter, cocooned in the soft patter of water. Ryan leaned back, hands clasped loosely in his lap. "I'm curious," he said, eyes on her. "How did you get into nursing?" Imani hesitated. "It was something I knew I had to do. Growing up, my mom was always busy, always stressed. I wanted to make people feel safe, even if I couldn't fix everything at home." He nodded, listening intently. "That's why you overwork yourself. You carry everyone else's burdens." "I can handle it," she said softly, a little defensively. He reached out and touched her hand lightly. The contact was brief but electrifying. Sometimes handling it alone isn't the same as handling it well. "Imani, you're not supposed to do this by yourself." Her gaze dropped, heart racing. "And what if people expect me to? What if I fail?" "You won't," he said firmly. "Because I'll be here. I don't just mean for the clinic. For other things too." She looked up at him, uncertainty flickering in her eyes. The emotion in his gaze was undeniable, raw and intense. She wanted to look away but couldn't. Something about him made the chaos of her life feel manageable, like a lighthouse cutting through a storm. As the afternoon wore on, the clinic's schedule became increasingly hectic. A delivery of new medical supplies arrived unexpectedly, and both Ryan and Imani jumped in to help unload boxes. Their movements were synchronized, almost unspoken, as they lifted, carried, and sorted through the packages. "You've got strong arms," she commented lightly as he handed her a box. "And you've got stamina," he countered with a grin. Their hands touched briefly as they shifted the heavy box together, and a spark shot through her that made her stomach flip. "Careful," she murmured. "You're distracting me." "Maybe that's my intention," he said softly, his gaze lingering. She rolled her eyes but didn't pull away. Inside, she felt a flutter of anticipation she hadn't experienced in years. Later, when the last patient had left, Ryan and Imani remained behind to tidy up. The soft golden light of the early evening filtered through the clinic windows, casting a warm glow over everything. "You've been doing this all day," he said, leaning against a counter. "I'm impressed. Most people would have collapsed by now." She laughed quietly, brushing a curl from her face. "You make it sound like I'm superhuman." "You are," he said, voice low. "Superhuman in ways people don't notice until it's almost too late." Her breath caught. The closeness, the intensity of his gaze, the tenderness in his tone. It was almost unbearable. She wanted to pull back, remind herself of boundaries, but her heart refused. "You know," he continued, "I can't stop thinking about that day at the pharmacy. When you fainted, I thought I might have lost you before I even knew you." Imani swallowed hard. "You really cared?" "I did," he said simply. "And I still do." The honesty in his voice was like a key turning in a lock deep within her chest. She felt exposed, vulnerable, yet safe in a way she hadn't felt in a long time. Without thinking, she reached out and placed her hand over his. The contact was tentative but electric. He didn't move his hand away. Instead, he intertwined his fingers with hers, holding it gently but firmly. Her pulse raced. Ryan, she whispered. He leaned closer, the space between them shrinking until their foreheads touched. Imani, he murmured. Time seemed to stop. The rain had slowed outside, leaving a hushed quiet in its wake. Their breathing synced, and the world outside the clinic disappeared. Then, just as their lips were about to meet, the door burst open. A volunteer waved frantically, breaking the spell. Ryan reluctantly pulled back, though his gaze remained fixed on hers. "Duty calls," he said lightly, though the flush on his cheeks betrayed the longing in his heart. Imani laughed nervously. "You could have kissed me," she said, half joking, half serious. "Noted," he said, a sly smile tugging at his lips. Over the next few weeks, their interactions became increasingly charged. Small touches lingered, conversations stretched just a little too long, and glances held more meaning than words could express. They worked side by side at the clinic, sharing quiet moments amidst the chaos, handing out supplies, comforting anxious patients, laughing at shared mishaps. Yet, both were careful not to push too far, aware that crossing the invisible line could complicate everything. The tension between them was electric, simmering just below the surface, waiting for the right moment to ignite. One evening, after a long day, Ryan offered to drive Imani home. The city lights blurred past the car window, creating a soft halo around everything. "You've changed since that first day," he said softly. "I can see it. The exhaustion is still there, but there's light. You're letting yourself be seen." Imani glanced at him, heart fluttering. "And you? Have you changed?" "I think I have," he admitted. "You make me want to be more than I thought I could." Their hands met on the center console, fingers brushing, then holding. It was a simple gesture, yet it carried the weight of unspoken feelings. When he finally stopped in front of her apartment, neither moved to leave immediately. The air between them was thick with anticipation, the unspoken question hanging in the space. "Will we let this happen?" Imani's lips trembled as she whispered, "Ryan." He leaned closer, the warmth of his breath brushing her cheek. "Yes," he said softly, and this time, he didn't pull back. Their first kiss was tentative, a gentle exploration, yet it held all the intensity of months compressed into one moment. It was slow, deliberate, and filled with the kind of longing that left them both breathless. When they finally parted, they rested their foreheads together, breathing in unison. "I've wanted that since the pharmacy," he admitted quietly. "Me too," she whispered, heart pounding. The days that followed were a delicate dance. They worked together, trained volunteers, and built the clinic into a small but thriving community haven. Yet every interaction carried the undercurrent of desire and connection. Imani found herself thinking of him constantly, imagining his touch, the warmth of his hand in hers, the intensity of his gaze. Ryan, too, felt the pull, unable to focus on business or logistics without his thoughts wandering to her. But as much as they wanted each other, neither wanted to rush the moment, both aware of the responsibilities and vulnerabilities they carried. It was a quiet storm, growing stronger every day, until one evening, a phone call changed everything. Her younger brother, Malik, had been hospitalized after a minor accident at school. The fear and helplessness she felt returned with a vengeance. Without thinking, she called Ryan. I don't know what to do," she whispered, panic threading through her voice. "I'm on my way," he said, already grabbing his coat. "Stay calm. I've got you." Within minutes, he was at her side, driving her through the rain-slicked streets, hands firm on hers, voice steady and reassuring. For the first time, she didn't have to carry it alone. In that car, amidst the pounding rain and flashing city lights, the unspoken truth crystallized. They weren't just falling for each other, they were tethered by fate, by care, by a love neither could deny. And as Ryan held her hand through the chaos, Imani realized, maybe this time, letting someone catch her didn't mean falling. Maybe it meant finally learning how to rise. Their first kiss. The hospital call. The undeniable tether between them, fate and desire interwoven. What will happen when real-life stakes collide with their growing hearts? Would you risk letting someone in, even when life is chaotic and unpredictable, just to feel truly seen and loved? The hospital waiting room was quiet, apart from the occasional shuffle of nurses and the distant beeping of monitors. Imani sat on a stiff plastic chair, her hands twisting in her lap. Malik's minor accident had turned into hours of waiting as doctors ran tests, but the panic and guilt she felt made the minutes stretch endlessly. Ryan sat beside her, his presence calm, solid, and grounding. He didn't crowd her, he didn't offer empty platitudes. Instead, he let her lean on him, figuratively and almost literally, resting her head briefly on his shoulder when the tension became unbearable. "You did everything you could," he said quietly. "None of this is your fault." "I know," she whispered, though her voice trembled. "But I should have been there sooner. I should have." He wrapped an arm around her shoulders. "Imani, listen to me. You're human. You can't carry the world alone. You never could." Her chest heaved with the relief and shame of being comforted, and she realized, for the first time, how much she craved it, not just from Ryan, but from someone who truly understood her burdens. Later that evening, back at the apartment, she couldn't stop replaying the day's events. Malik was fine, but the near accident had peeled back layers she had been covering for years. Ryan had stayed with her the entire time, calm and reassuring, and she had never felt more vulnerable. She hadn't realized how much she wanted someone to lean on, someone who wouldn't judge her for needing help. Ryan, sitting across from her in the softly lit living room, watched her with quiet concern. "Imani, I know we've been spending a lot of time together, but there's something I need to tell you." She looked up, heart thudding. "What is it?" He hesitated, as though weighing the words. "I haven't been completely honest with you about my past." Her brows knitted. "Your past?" He nodded, eyes darkening slightly. "I come from a family that isn't perfect. My parents made decisions that I don't agree with, choices that hurt people. I've spent years trying to make amends in my own way. I want you to know that before things go further between us, I don't want any secrets." Imani's chest tightened. She understood. She, too, had a past filled with tough choices, quiet sacrifices, and personal regrets. "I get it," she said softly. "I have my own history, Ryan. You're not alone in that." He reached out, taking her hand in both of his. "I just needed you to know. I can't pretend to be perfect, and I don't want you to think I am." For a moment, silence wrapped around them, heavy but not suffocating. There was trust building in the shared acknowledgement of flaws and mistakes. The following days brought a new tension. Imani's work at the clinic intensified with the addition of new volunteers, and Ryan's business obligations pulled him away more often. The moments they shared became fleeting and precious, each glance, each touch loaded with anticipation and unspoken words. One afternoon, Imani received a call from her mother. The conversation was brief but revealing. Her family had financial struggles she had been hiding to avoid worrying her younger siblings. Imani felt the old weight pressing on her again. She didn't want to burden Ryan, yet the thought of handling it alone made her chest ache. Later, as she sat at the clinic reviewing patient files, Ryan arrived unexpectedly, coffee in hand. He didn't ask questions about her family or finances. He simply sat beside her, placing a hand over hers. "You don't have to carry this by yourself," he said softly. Her lips pressed together to hold back emotion. "I know," she whispered, leaning into his warmth. He smiled faintly, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Then let me help. We'll figure it out together." That night, Ryan invited Imani to a small private dinner at his apartment. It wasn't extravagant, just simple, home-cooked food, soft music, and candles creating a cozy glow. "You know," he said, reaching for her hand across the table, "I've been thinking about the first time I saw you at the pharmacy." She laughed softly, shaking her head. "I can't believe that happened. I was so embarrassed." "I don't see it that way," he said gently. "I saw someone who was kind, generous, and fiercely independent, and someone I couldn't ignore. I wanted to know you, to understand you, to be part of your life." Her eyes softened, warmth spreading through her chest. "You make it sound so simple," she murmured. "But life, it's messy. I'm messy." And yet, he replied, I'm here. The intensity of his gaze made her heart pound. She leaned forward, bridging the small gap between them, until their foreheads touched. The world outside ceased to exist, the past, the fears, the obligations, all faded in that intimate bubble. For a brief, glorious moment, they were just two people, vulnerable and alive, and the connection between them deepened in a way neither had anticipated. Yet, just as hope and warmth filled the room, Ryan's phone buzzed insistently. He glanced at it and frowned. A quick conversation later, his face clouded with tension. I need to handle this, he said, standing abruptly. Something urgent has come up at work. I'm sorry, Iman. Ryan, she interrupted softly, a hint of worry creeping into her voice. Is it serious? He hesitated, then nodded. Yes. But I promise, I'll be back as soon as I can. Her stomach twisted. The threat of separation loomed, reminding her of the fragility of everything they were building together. She realized just how much she relied on him, how deeply she had begun to trust him, how much his presence had become a part of her sense of safety. The next day at the clinic, tension hovered like a storm cloud. Imani's thoughts kept drifting to Ryan, who was unreachable for most of the morning. She forced herself to focus, yet every patient interaction reminded her of the void left by his absence. By mid-afternoon, he finally returned. The relief on her face was palpable. He approached, weary but smiling, and she nearly ran into his arms. You scared me, she said softly, clutching his jacket. I didn't mean to, he whispered, holding her close. Everything's fine now. I'm here. And in that embrace, the storm outside mirrored the turbulence inside, the looming pressures, the past secrets, the responsibilities pressing on them both. Yet, their shared moment reinforced a truth neither could deny. Together, they were stronger. That evening, Ryan invited Imani to his penthouse, an unassuming space made warm and welcoming, far removed from the public image of wealth and perfection. He led her to a wall lined with framed photos of his family, his travels, moments of joy and heartbreak interwoven. I've kept these for a reason, he said, voice heavy. They remind me of where I've been, what I've lost, and what I still have to protect. Imani scanned the images, noticing the subtle scars on his expression in some, the genuine smiles in others. You've carried a lot, she said softly. And I will continue to carry it, he replied. But now, I want to carry some of it with you. Share it with you. I trust you, Imani. Her throat tightened, emotion swelling. She reached for his hand, entwining their fingers. I trust you too, she whispered. The honesty, the exposure of vulnerabilities, forged a bond between them stronger than attraction alone could create. But with trust came risk, and both understood that life had a way of testing even the deepest connections. The following weekend brought a sudden, unexpected test. A major donation for the clinic went missing, throwing operations into chaos. Volunteers were frustrated, patients confused, and Imani felt the weight of responsibility pressing down again. Ryan, sensing her panic, took charge. We'll handle this, he assured her, his tone calm but firm. Together. They worked side by side, investigating the mishap while juggling daily responsibilities. The stress forced them into constant proximity, their interactions a mix of professional coordination and quiet, stolen glances filled with longing. When they finally solved the issue, a miscommunication with a supplier, Imani felt a wave of relief. Ryan pulled her into a tight embrace, his warmth enveloping her. You see, he whispered. No matter the storm, we handle it. Together. Her eyes filled with tears. I never thought I could let someone in like this. You don't have to think anymore, he said, tilting her chin gently up. You just have to trust it. And in that moment, surrounded by the chaos of the clinic, their vulnerabilities, and the lingering tension, they both understood. The storm had only made their bond stronger. But the real test, their deepest fears, secrets and insecurities, was still ahead. Secrets revealed. Family pressures mounting. Trust and intimacy growing amidst external chaos. But when life throws its hardest curveballs, will their love be enough to survive? Could you open your heart fully, even when the past and present threaten to overwhelm you? The early morning sun barely lit the streets when Imani stepped out of her apartment, carrying a small bag of supplies for the clinic. The city hummed with life, indifferent to her growing sense of dread. Ryan hadn't called or responded to texts since late the previous night. His silence gnawed at her, leaving her stomach in knots. She replayed the previous evening's events in her mind. The clinic's donation crisis had been resolved, but a lingering unease had followed him home. When he promised to handle it together, she hadn't realized how quickly circumstances could twist trust into tension. By the time she arrived at the clinic, a volunteer intercepted her with a worried look. "Imani, you need to see this," the woman said, pointing to a stack of newspapers laid across the reception desk. Imani's heart froze. The headlines screamed accusations: clinic mismanagement, Millionaire partners charity under scrutiny. Photos of Ryan, hands folded formally, contrasted with Imani in the background of previous volunteer events, as though she were implicated. What does this mean?" she whispered, panic rising. The volunteer shrugged helplessly. "I don't know, but people are calling, asking questions. It's bad." Ryan arrived shortly afterward, suit disheveled, eyes stormy. He approached cautiously, sensing the tension but unprepared for the wave of accusation that had already hit Imani. "Imani, he began. "Save it," she interrupted, voice shaking. "I saw the headlines. Do you even care that people think we're failing? That they think this is all your fault?" He took a deep breath, hands raised in a calming gesture. "I do care. I'm trying to manage everything, but the media jumped on this before we could clarify anything. Imani, you have to trust me." Her eyes filled with tears. "Trust you? Ryan, I've been trying to trust you, but every time I think we're safe, something else happens. I don't know if I can." "Imani, listen to me," he snapped, the frustration and worry in his voice raw. "You are not failing. None of this is your fault. You think I don't see the way you work, the way you care? I've watched you fight every single day. You're amazing." She shook her head, stepping back. "Then why do I feel like I'm drowning?" The tension escalated, voices raised in a mixture of fear, hurt, and helplessness. Neither of them wanted to hurt the other, yet the external pressure magnified insecurities long buried. Hours later, the storm of public scrutiny had subsided slightly, but the emotional fallout lingered. Imani retreated to her apartment, tears streaming silently. Ryan paced outside, debating whether to knock, enter, or respect her space. He realized the love between them had never been tested like this, and now everything seemed fragile. Meanwhile, Imani sank onto the edge of her bed, clutching her chest. The weight of responsibility, fear of losing Ryan, and the pressure of familial obligations pressed down, threatening to suffocate her. She felt powerless for the first time in years. By evening, Ryan finally approached her apartment again, this time resolute. He knocked, waited, then gently pushed the door open when there was no answer. "Imani," he whispered, voice soft but commanding attention. "We need to talk." She turned toward him, eyes swollen from crying, yet defiance flickered in her gaze. "I don't know if we can. Everything's falling apart. Maybe we were wrong to think this could work." He closed the distance, kneeling in front of her. "Wrong? Imani, love isn't about things being easy. It's about choosing each other even when everything feels impossible." She shook her head, tears slipping down her cheeks. "I don't know if I'm strong enough." "You are," he said firmly, cupping her face in his hands. "Stronger than you realize. And you're not alone anymore." The first crack appeared when Ryan revealed a secret he had been carrying, one he thought would never surface. The reason he had been so hands-on at the clinic was personal. His family's past mistakes had caused a previous foundation to collapse, leaving him determined not to repeat history. "I wanted to protect you," he confessed, voice low and trembling. "I didn't tell you because I didn't want you to worry. I didn't want to scare you away." Imani's stomach twisted. "You lied to me. I didn't lie, he insisted. I just withheld some information to keep you safe. I never wanted to hurt you. Her tears flowed freely now, a mix of relief and anger. Ryan, protection isn't honesty. You can't shield me from everything. I need the truth, even if it hurts. The tension between them was almost unbearable. Silence fell, heavy and suffocating, as both realized the depth of what had been unsaid. The emotional low point came later that night when Malik called, frightened by the headlines and misinterpretations. Imani's heart shattered hearing her brother's worry, and Ryan had to leave abruptly to manage the media fallout. 4 hours, Imani sat alone, staring at the rain streaking down her window, heart aching. The love and trust that had grown so beautifully felt shattered. Her mind replayed every moment of joy and tension, and a single thought kept repeating, what if this is too much? What if love isn't enough? Ryan, miles away in his office, stared at the city skyline, racked with guilt and frustration. He knew the choices he had made had endangered the fragile trust between them. Every decision he made, every attempt to protect, had backfired in a way he never anticipated. He couldn't bear the thought of losing Imani. The breaking point arrived the next morning. Imani, still emotionally raw, confronted Ryan at the clinic. I can't do this anymore, she said, voice barely above a whisper. I can't keep feeling like I'm walking on a tightrope. I love you, Ryan, but I need to breathe. Her words hit him like a physical blow. Imani, please, don't do this. We can work through it. I promise. You promised a lot already, she said, stepping back. And yet, here we are, more secrets, more chaos, more hurt. For a moment, time seemed frozen. The air was thick with regret, longing, and fear. Ryan wanted to sweep her into his arms, to shield her from the world, but he knew she needed space. He nodded slowly, swallowing the lump in his throat. I'll give you space, he said softly, but I'm not giving up on us. I'll wait as long as it takes. Imani's eyes glistened. I don't know if I can. I just need to think. And with that, she turned, leaving him standing in the quiet clinic, heart heavy with the weight of potential loss. The days that followed were agonizing. Phone calls went unanswered, messages left unread. Ryan spent every waking moment strategizing how to fix the media fallout, stabilize the clinic, and prove to Imani that their bond was unshakable. Imani, meanwhile, wrestled with the tumult of emotions, love, anger, fear, and hope intertwined in a confusing swirl. She realized how deeply Ryan had become part of her life, how much she relied on his presence, and how unbearable the idea of losing him truly was. Every memory of their first meeting, the pharmacy, the clinic, the tender moments, they all surged through her mind, reminding her that despite the pain, the connection they shared was rare, precious, and worth fighting for. Late one evening, as the city slept under a quiet drizzle, Ryan showed up at her apartment, exhausted but unwavering. He didn't knock, he knew she would let him in if she wanted. The door opened slowly, and their eyes met, a storm of emotions swirling between them. Imani, he said, voice trembling. I can't lose you. Not now, not ever. Whatever mistakes I've made, whatever secrets I've kept, I want to fix this. With you. Always. Her chest tightened. The vulnerability in his voice broke something open in her. She stepped closer, heart pounding. Ryan. I don't want to lose us, either. He took her hands in his, eyes locking with hers. Then don't. Let's face it together. No secrets, no distance, no fear. Just us. Tears slipped down her cheeks as she nodded, finally letting go of the weight she had carried alone for so long. And in that moment, in the quiet of her apartment, with rain tapping softly against the window, they embraced, not just holding each other physically, but emotionally, bridging every gap, healing every wound. The truth is revealed. Painful mistakes surface. Separation looms, but a choice remains. Will they risk everything for love? Have you ever been at the edge of losing someone you love, and realized you'd fight for them no matter what? The city was quiet that morning, the soft sunlight filtering through the apartment windows, painting everything in gentle gold. Imani sat at her kitchen table, a cup of coffee warming her hands, yet her mind was elsewhere. She couldn't shake the memory of the past few days, the chaos, the misunderstandings, the heartbreak, and Ryan's unwavering presence even when distance separated them. Her phone buzzed on the counter. She hesitated, then saw his name flashing across the screen. Ryan. She picked up, heart hammering. Imani, he said, voice low but steady. I know I've hurt you. I know I've made mistakes. But I can't wait any longer. I need to see you. Can you meet me? Her chest ached with longing and hope. Without a word, she agreed. An hour later, she arrived at the clinic, the place that had become both sanctuary and battlefield for them. The doors opened, revealing Ryan standing at the center of the lobby. The soft golden morning light pooled around him, highlighting the exhaustion etched on his face and the sincerity in his eyes. Imani, he said, stepping forward, I've spent every second since we last spoke thinking about how to make this right. I can't promise life will be perfect, but I can promise you this, I will never stop choosing you. Her throat tightened. Ryan, she whispered, tears welling up. I've been scared. But I can't imagine not being with you. He closed the distance, cupping her face in his hands. Then don't imagine it. We face everything together, Imani. No more secrets. No more fear. Just us. They embraced, the warmth and tension of the past days melting away in a long, lingering hug. Every heartbeat between them synced, every whispered breath a promise of renewal. Later that evening, Ryan led Imani to a quiet rooftop overlooking the city skyline. The lights twinkled below like distant stars, and the cool breeze carried the scent of rain-soaked streets. I wanted to do something for you, he said softly, holding a small box. Imani tilted her head, curiosity sparking. For me. He nodded, eyes locking with hers. For us. For everything we've been through. For trust. For love. For second chances. She opened the box to reveal a delicate charm bracelet, each charm representing moments they had shared. The pharmacy, the clinic, the hospital waiting room, the rainy day walks. Each tiny symbol told a story, a memory, a promise. I don't know what to say, she whispered, overwhelmed. Then don't say anything, he said, sliding the bracelet onto her wrist. Just know that I'm here. And I'm not going anywhere. Tears streamed down her face as she threw her arms around him. Ryan. I love you. I love you too, he replied, pressing his forehead to hers. More than anything. The next weeks were a blur of healing and reconnection. At the clinic, Imani and Ryan worked side by side, not just as partners in love, but as partners in life. Challenges arose, media scrutiny lingered, family pressures surfaced, but they faced each obstacle together, a united front strengthened by trust, honesty, and shared purpose. One afternoon, while helping organize a community outreach event, Ryan noticed Imani laughing with the volunteers, her eyes sparkling with genuine joy. He approached quietly, wrapping his arms around her waist from behind. You know, he murmured into her ear, I could get used to this. She leaned back into him, smiling. Get used to what? Us. The chaos, the laughter, the moments we never want to end. Her laughter mingled with his, warm and carefree. I think I could get used to that too. As the sun dipped below the horizon one evening, casting the sky in shades of pink and violet, Ryan took Imani to a quiet garden nearby. Candles lined the pathways, soft music floated on the breeze, and the world seemed to hold its breath. Imani, he said, kneeling on one knee, holding her hands tightly, life has thrown us challenges, surprises, and fears. But through it all, one truth has remained, my love for you. I want to build a future with you, every single day. Will you marry me? Imani's eyes welled with tears, her heart swelling with joy and certainty. Yes, she whispered, voice breaking with emotion. Yes, Ryan. I will. He slipped the ring onto her finger, and they embraced, the city lights bearing witness to a love that had survived storms, miscommunication, and fear. Their kiss sealed the promise of forever, tender, passionate, and unwavering. In the weeks that followed, Their engagement was a quiet celebration of intimacy, trust, and connection. Family and friends gathered, not in grand opulence, but in meaningful ways, honoring the love that had endured. Imani's siblings warmed to Ryan, recognizing his sincerity and devotion. Ryan's family acknowledged Imani's strength, her compassion, and the way she had softened his world without changing who he was. Even the clinic, once a source of tension, became a symbol of their partnership, a shared mission, a testament to what they could achieve together. Months later, the day of their wedding arrived. It was a sunlit afternoon, gentle breezes carrying the scent of blooming flowers. Imani walked down the aisle in a gown that balanced elegance and comfort, her eyes fixed on Ryan, who waited with a smile that made her heart leap. The ceremony was intimate, focused on the promises they had made to each other, the journey they had endured, and the love that had transformed them both. When they exchanged vows, there wasn't a dry eye in the room. "I promise to be your partner in life, your confidant, your safe place," Ryan said, voice steady but full of emotion. "Through storms and sunshine, I choose you. Always." Imani's voice quivered with feeling. "I promise to trust you, to lean on you, to laugh and cry with you. With you, I am home. Always." The first kiss as a married couple was electric, a perfect blend of passion, tenderness, and relief. They held each other tightly, aware of every heartbeat, every breath, every emotion that had brought them to this moment. Later, as they danced under the soft glow of fairy lights, Ryan whispered into her ear, "Remember the pharmacy?" Imani laughed softly. "How could I forget? You caught me when I fell, and you never let go." "I'll never let go," he said, tightening his embrace. "Not now, not ever." She rested her head on his shoulder, eyes closed, savoring the moment. "I love you, Ryan." "And I love you," he replied. "More than I could ever put into words." The epilogue was simple but profound. Imani and Ryan built a life filled with trust, laughter, shared dreams, and quiet moments of intimacy. They celebrated each small victory, weathered each storm together, and created a home where love wasn't perfect, but it was real, resilient, and everlasting. The clinic flourished under their joint guidance, a beacon of hope and care for the community. Ryan's family and Imani's siblings remained supportive, witnessing a love story that had endured trials and emerged stronger. Even on ordinary days, their connection remained palpable, gentle touches, lingering glances, whispered words of love. Their story had begun with a faint in a pharmacy, but it had grown into something timeless, a testament to vulnerability, trust, and the transformative power of love. From near collapse to unwavering love, their journey proves that honesty, trust, and vulnerability can heal even the deepest wounds. Love isn't just found, it's fought for, earned, and cherished. Do you believe everyone deserves a second chance at love? Sometimes, one moment, one choice, can change your life forever. Could this be your story too?
Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as crazier and more intriguing as you can ever imagine. So do check it out. Click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next one.